All right, we are live. All right, welcome back everyone to the Mr. Rent to Own Home Show. My name is Dominic Danino, aka Mr. Rent to Own Homes. And in this live, we're going to be talking about the entrepreneur mindset, networking and building relationships that last a lifetime. Um, so I am joined by James Brown today, real estate investor, real estate agent with EXP in Colorado. So welcome back, James. How you doing, brother?
Doing great. I think this is going to be a good subject.
Yeah, right. So kind of uh, the subject leads to a couple of things, right? That we've experienced, not, and then we deal with every day as entrepreneurs, right? And doesn't mean you have to be necessarily an agent or lender or any of those things, right? But just entrepreneur mindset and having uh, a different thought process and working with others, right? So
Do you
I
want
want
to
to
talk
dive
about the
into
title?
this.
Do you
Yeah,
want
so I want to dive into this, right? Because it was a refresher for me just over the last couple of days, and we've always thought of it this way, and that's how we, came to be and collaborate on this live and other deals and everything else that we've done together, right?
right?
Uh,
Yeah.
Meeting through other people and connecting and networking and getting to hang out and at different events and then just sharing what we're doing, and then what somebody else brings to the table, like so what you bring to the table versus what I bring to the table, and how do we piece that together and not feeling like, hey, you're going to steal from me and I'm going to steal from you, or you're interfering in my space or I'm interfering in your space, right? So mindset is huge because you're always going to deal with those challenges, and you can't do it alone. It is very difficult to succeed as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, doing everything yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not good at everything, right? We aren't good at everything, right? We're better at some things than others, and so having that perspective and giving yourself uh, the opportunity to work with others, so
hmm
that way you don't feel like you have to carry the whole load all by yourself.
Yeah. And it's not just leverage, relying on other people and having them do it's also just that abundance mindset of, hey, we're kind of in this together. We can put the puzzle pieces together and we all come out winning, right? Like something, you put a deal together, something's better than nothing, right? So it's kind of
Yeah,
a little bit of a difference there.
absolutely, right. And I think when it comes to transactions and deals and business, you're not always going to hit a home run, right? Or every deal isn't a home run, right? You're going to have singles and doubles and triples. I mean, using the baseball analogy, since we're getting close to playoff time, baseball.
Yeah. And a
Uh,
lot of whiffs.
yeah, you're going to strike out sometimes too, right? But
Lots
that's
of them.
okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. You keep moving forward, but being able to have others to bounce ideas from,
Yeah.
right? Somebody else may have done it differently or have that experience um, in something else, and maybe they can give you a different perspective, right? Because sometimes when we're so close to something, we're not seeing the bigger picture, right? Maybe we're too emotionally attached. We're not impartial to what's happening, right? So sometimes it's better to have somebody that's not even vested, right, in any way to the deal, and say, just give you a perspective of saying, hey, how about you consider this or how you consider that, right? They have no dog in the fight, as they say, or no skin in the game, but they can give you a different perspective. So
Yeah.
uh, as before we got started, right, I was talking about this conversation that I had with a business development person for one of our local title companies, and just sharing how her experience has been with working with agents and lenders and investors, and how different the mindset is. And she never had that experience before until she started working with investors, about having a abundance mentality. And she talks about hey, investors tend to collaborate, work together more than I ever experienced on the traditional side working with agents and lenders. And this isn't a bashing, you know, this isn't a bashing session for agents or lenders per se, right? But I think they may be missing the boat if you're thinking that one, you're going to succeed all by yourself. Two, that you don't need others' help, and three, that everybody's always trying to get something from you, right? Like, you know, you're somebody's going to take your lead, your commission, your client, whatever that may be, right? Your listing. I mean, it isn't always that, and that's a it's a short-sighted way of looking at things when it comes to doing business, right? So, I mean, I'll let you speak to the agent mentality, and then having or being on both ends of it when you're dealing with traditional agents and then working and collaborating with other investors on different transactions.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, there's a lot of agents out there, right? Less investors, but there's still a lot of investors as well. Yeah, the mindset is quite a bit different, I've found. And I got into this business on the investing side. I kind of went into it with an entrepreneurial mindset because I've always run my own business, at least for the last 25 years. And then I got licensed as an agent. And so I kind of see both worlds like you do, and see that kind of limited mindset with the agents.
They see that there's only limited transactions to be had and to be shared, right?
And it's
That's
true.
basically what they see. That's what they see, but they don't realize that there are multiple ways to do transactions or generate revenue from other than just a traditional transaction, right?
Yeah.
Because you as an agent, not only can you do a traditional transaction where you're either representing a buyer or a seller and get a commission, but you could also be an investor in the transaction. You could also generate something else and say, hey, maybe this is a property that I want to buy, and maybe I want to renovate it and fix it and sell it at a retail market and potentially for a profit, or that's not my skill set. I don't want to do that, but maybe you as an agent could become a lender in the transaction.
Yeah,
right?
we've had
Or
that.
you could just be a lead source and say, you know what? My focus is listings or new home buy, first-time home buyers or retirees or whatever that may be. And my genius zone isn't this that I just have on my table and I don't know what to do with it. But I can say, you know what? I know somebody that does this and that's their specialty. That's okay. I can pass it on, or and maybe they give me something for it, or maybe they reciprocate because we do this all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this isn't in my lane. If somebody comes at me and says, hey, I want to invest in the storage units or buy storage units, or how do I analyze storage units? Like, that's not my lane, but I know people, right? And I can give you a number and reach out to them and see, and maybe that's what you need right now, right? So
Yeah.
it isn't always like I have to get something, right? It's I truly believe in karma in the sense that, hey, no, whatever I give out, I'm gonna get back, right? Some way, somehow, and it doesn't always mean money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
I may be stranded on the side of the road with a flat tire or whatever, overheated car, or who knows, right? And somebody's gonna come along. It just happens to be somebody that I helped along the way somewhere else, right? It happens that way. It's weird, but it happens that way, right? So I think having that kind of open-mindedness and feeling like, hey, there's plenty for everyone, right?
Yeah.
There's more to be created, right? So I don't want to get philosophical here, but
go for it.
Well, I don't know. I truly believe that the universe or God or whatever you believe in, gives us more than we're able to handle, right? So,
yeah. Have you read The Go-Giver?
Yeah, absolutely. I have that book.
Yeah, it's a great book. Like,
it is a great book.
I like to think about that and just trying to help as many people as possible. Who was it that somebody was quoted as saying, the more people you help, maybe Zig Ziglar,
Yeah,
the more
yeah,
successful you'll be, basically. So
yeah,
just
absolutely, right?
keep
Go
trying to add
into it,
value to people, right?
yeah, go into it with that mindset, and the universe or whatever, the karma will come back to you tenfold or whatever that is, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so there was a great conversation I had with this marketing rep, and then just for that, right, over the last few days, we've been able to kind of piece a deal together to help somebody else along. And then off of that, there was more potential opportunities that come off of that because you're just talking about how you're helping them. It's like, hey, I have it or I don't have it, but I know that no, but I know somebody that does, and kind of let's see if we can kind of share into that, right? And if you're able to bring that to the table, right, um, you're going to create plenty of opportunities for yourself uh, to say profit, but to grow and monetarily and personally too, right? And building those relationships. Some of these relationships I feel like are going to be lifetime relationships. I've been in several mastermind groups and events that I've talked to people that I network, and over years we're still connected. We still reach out. We still, hey, they may be in another part of the country doing something totally different than I am, but that's okay. I can still cheer them on, right? I may see them on social media or something to that effect, or we may reconnect every once a year. There's an event that next month that I always go to, that I've been going to since 2018, and not to plug any event, but there's people that I've known from the first time that I was there, and then we still connect and we still reach out, and even if it's just once a year, hey, what's going on? What have you been up to? What are you working on? What how's your business? Or how can I help? Right? Anything that I'm doing that you think maybe you want to know about, or that I can give you, or anything along those lines, right? And then just staying up with them, and I think continuing to reach out to people, even if it's once a year. I mean, yeah, you like to make it more regular, of course. And for me, calendar wise, Fridays is my networking and outreach day, right? So I have that plugged in into my calendar Fridays, because it leads to the weekend. It's a fun day, a Friday fun day kind of thing. And so I like to reach out to people, connect. Hey, what's going on? What do you got going on this weekend? Doing anything fun? Oh yeah, what's business? Anything that I can help you with? Anything you're stuck on? Maybe I have the answer, maybe I don't, but I can point you in the right direction. Or how do we work together? Or hey, reminder, I'm still here and this is what I do. And somebody's like, oh yeah, I forgot. And then good. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I just had something like that.
Yeah. And this leads into a bunch of stuff, like
Go for it.
things change, right? And I was gonna share this book that this this is the Colorado Real Estate Investing Strategies book. It's maybe in the 6th year or something. So I met Chris Lopez. He's the curator of this book. So it's actually a curated or crowdsourced book. So there's there's all the authors.
Here, let's get a close up of that book.
Yeah, including, so I've been in that. So this is the 4th edition that I've been in with this book. Chris has an abundance mindset. He's like, well, plus he's leveraging other people's ideas, but this kind of was formed out of his real estate investing strategy, his need to be accountable. So he's like, I'm going to publish this. Like, he put it on a website initially. It's like sharing it with any other investors that wanted to read his strategy. He wasn't kind of keeping his strategy to himself, right? And then he found other people like myself were open to sharing what we're doing, so we can help each other. And everybody in that book has different strategies. It's just it just goes to show, like, investors are more, have that abundance mindset. And what's cool is, like, recently he reached out to me. He's like, I think we need to talk, because we were kind of going down the similar path. And he shared he has a podcast as well. where he interviewed a guy that he and his team do build to rent communities.
Yep.
He's brought them in. He had them on the website or on the podcast, and then brought them into town. And we went to that. So we may raise money for this next project together. So 4 years, actually, I've known Chris longer than that, but years later, things are starting to line up where, hey, we're going to work together. Never would have known that if we both didn't have that same mindset, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't become real, or it doesn't materialize sometimes in the immediate moment, right?
Yeah.
In the immediate moment, it doesn't. It's always like there's a saying is, get what you need right now, right? What do you need right now? Now, what I have, you may not need this instant, today, or even this week, or even this month. Hell, maybe not even this year, right? But as you just gave in that example, it's like, oh, 4 years down the road, okay, now we can collaborate because now we're at the right spot and we kind of have the same idea, or we're working on something that's similar, that kind of aligns with us today.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, as I was mentioning, right? I had somebody send me a client, or somebody that's a contractor, a general contractor. When I was needing a contractor yesterday, right, for somebody else's deal, because they were trying to borrow money to do a fix and flip, but because of their project size, they needed a licensed contractor because it was a big project. Well, they didn't have that. Well, it happens to be that today I get an email from somebody else that I'm helping out on a different deal that says, "Hey, I have this contractor that's looking for somebody to work with that understands the fix and flip and investing and working with real estate investors, and he's open to either taking on projects or even working together and collaborating, where he does the work, doesn't charge for the work, but to be able to partner up with somebody that brings the other stuff to the table, right? So the other skill set is, hey, the lending, buying the right deals, sourcing the right deals. He's not good at that, and that's not what he does, and vice versa. I'm not a contractor. I'm not a GC. I know enough, right? But and I've done a few things. I've done demos and removed tile and all of that stuff. But my time is better spent in the skill set that I'm better at, right? Putting deals together, putting the numbers together, sourcing the deals, running and see, okay, this is a good deal, bad deal. How do we get financing for it? How do we lend? What is this going to look like? Is there profit, no profit, right? That's what I'm better at. And he's better at that. So is there something that we could all collaborate, right? Maybe you bring the money to the table and I bring the deal to the table, and he brings the project management and the construction aspect to the table, and we can all, hey, let's do it together, and then we share in that, right? We all have a vested interest, but we're all not to say staying in our lane per se, but at least continue to do what we're good at.
Yeah, there's a lot of skill sets and moving parts to investments, more so than just buying and selling homes, right? So, but even then, like, back to the subject of this show is rent to own. Like, you and I both teach classes to agents and lenders and open their eyes to possibilities, right? Oftentimes they're like, oh, they might have some preconceived ideas about rent to own, and some of them may be bad and they might be valid, right? But so we dive into the good way to do these and the bad way, and like the red flags, and get into all that. But I think the other eye-opening thing for them is that, oh, like, this is another way that they can help people and help people together with us, because it's a team. In fact, I love, one time I was like, oh, I'm going to put together a video and list all the people that were involved in a deal. And it was like, I came up with like 8. And then after I got done filming the video and published it, I'm like, wait, there was even more people involved. There was like 13 different people, like myself, my partner, I kind of count us as one, multiple lenders. There's a lender for the buyer, a lender for the investor. The investor, an agent. This particular deal I was thinking about was like in a remote place 4 hours from Denver. So I had to rely on 2 different agents down there, title company here, title company there, appraisers and multiple inspectors. Like all of a sudden it's like, wow, that's a lot of people, more than a regular transaction. But I had to put that all together, and it was like everybody won, right? And the people ended up buying the house, which was awesome. They wouldn't have been able to buy that house if we hadn't come in and helped them get it. No agent would have gotten any loan, and no lender would have. So
Right.
you get it.
Yeah, right. Because they wouldn't have known who to work with or where to get the solution, right?
Right.
If you're not collaborating, if you're not building those relationships, if you're not touching base and like, hey, what do you do? Okay, maybe it's something, maybe it has nothing to do with what we do, right? But maybe they're in creating T-shirts, or I don't know. Okay, that's great, right? But are they self-employed? Yeah, right. Are they qualified for a house? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they have a business and they write off a lot of stuff, right? Maybe their credit isn't so good because entrepreneurs get into a bunch of businesses, and sometimes they use their personal credit, right? And sometimes that business doesn't go well, and it has an impact on their credit. So it could be multiple ways but it's about asking questions like, hey, what do you do? Where do you live? Oh, tell me more, right? So asking questions, being open to listening, and kind of think there's a little bit of skill set of being a good listener, right?
100%.
Being a good listener and kind of looking for the clues where, hey, maybe I can add this value to you, and I can share my own experiences, and maybe it's valuable to you today, or maybe I don't know, down the road it kind of hits you and it's like, oh wait, now I understand, or now maybe this is the time that I need this individual to either help me along the way or point me in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, but being open and asking the right questions, and don't not having a closed mindset as like, okay, somebody's trying to take something from me, right? Or I mean, unfortunately, you're not going to grow if you have that kind of perspective on things, that there's only a limited amount in what you do. I mean, or whatever you may be doing. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything relating to real estate per se, right? I mean, you see a lot of, if you follow the business world, you see a lot of big names collaborating together. Now, publicly traded companies have certain restrictions and so forth because they're publicly traded. But generally, if let's say they're private companies, you see them constantly collaborating or coming together. Oh, we're gonna create a JV on this initiative. We're still independent, but then we're gonna work on this together, right? It could be electric, solar, cars, any kind of technology these days, right? So, so you can't get to the top, or you can't succeed all by yourself.
Yeah. I want to bring up another one of my favorite books. It's called A Curious Mind, written by Brian Grazer. He was the producer of some huge hits. Like he did a lot of movies with Ron Howard. So Splash was one of them. But the book, he talks about being a kid interested in movies and stuff. And he got a job as I'm blanking the word. When you deliver stuff to, starts with a C. Courier. Thanks.
It's all right. Yeah, I happen to be too.
A courier. So his job was awesome because he was able to take stuff to all these big producers in Hollywood.
Nice.
Normally he wouldn't be able to get in the room with them, but he was handing them some valuable documents. And he was just a curious guy, and he'd start asking them questions, and he'd turn into these really cool conversations. And that led to him like being connected with other people, like in other industries. And he just kind of kept it going, just really diving in and asking questions and listening, right? And he points out, he's like, if I wasn't curious and actually asked the questions and engaged and all that, he's like, none of these box office hits ever would have come about. And he kind of used examples like where the seeds for these stories, these ideas came from.
Somebody calling right now who wants to put a deal and collaborate.
Brian Grazer who wants to do a movie on our lives.
Yeah.
But anyway, I love that. Just it's sunk in with me, you know, like just be curious and open and listen, and cool stuff happens. So that's,
well, let me ask this question, right? So generally we talk in the real estate space in general with agents and lenders and so forth, right? But
yeah.
let's say, a hot button question for you is like, okay, what if I'm an introvert?
Stop it. Introvert. I don't know how to.
Yeah, so I think I've heard this explained, or somebody kind of put it in this perspective. I don't know if it was a Tony Robbins or some other speaker, right? It's like, who or when did you define yourself that way?
Yeah.
Right? Because you set your own limitations to that by calling yourself that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I used to say, hey, I'm not very creative when it comes to artistic and all. I used to say that, right? But now I've always changed my mindset. It was like, hey, I am working on that skill set that I didn't have, right? And I got better over time. We're not a finished product. Even to the day we die, we're not a finished product, right? But you have to be open to the ability of continuing to improve all your skill sets, right? Some of them you're going to be better at naturally, and some of them you're not. But don't define yourself. Don't let anybody else define you to something that is going to close you to living your best life.
Yeah, totally. You know, well, a couple of things, like the word introvert, I don't know if there's like a definition that I'm sure there is like a actual definition, but I think there's some confusion over like, what is an introvert and what is somebody, like maybe somebody's shy. That's also I think it's just a lack of confidence is what that is, you know? Because like, I think back when I was a kid, I was the kid that was hanging on to mom's skirt, you know, and wouldn't talk to people. Now I'm like the freaking opposite. People like that know me are like, you know, everybody, you'll talk to anybody. Like, one thing, I worked on that. I was like, I don't want to be that shy, uncomfortable, unconfident person. So I just pushed and pushed, get up in front of people and go engage one-on-one, like just keep pushing. And now I feel way more comfortable in many settings. It's such a relief not to be that kind of scared little kid anymore, and it's still there. I mean, I still have some fears, but yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can speak to myself, right? So before 2018, I didn't even have social media. I was allergic to social media. I didn't even have a Facebook account. So, but I think in 2018, I made a decision that, hey, I want to do something, and it's going to require me to also do something that I didn't think that I was good at, or didn't want to, or didn't like doing. Right, putting myself out there, networking, talking to people, opening up.
Yep.
Right, there we go.
I silenced it for 1 hour, but we started so late. All right,
and so, but you have to change your mindset and say, okay, am I limiting myself, or am I keeping myself from reaching whatever goal that I'm trying to accomplish? Right. So then you just have to change that. Right. And yes, is it gonna be easy? No. Right. But it'll take some work. And then you have to get comfortable with the fact that, hey, you're becoming a better you. Right. Right. Yeah. I think there's a saying that says, you can't become who you want to be by remaining who you are.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
And then maybe sometimes that comes with life experience and maybe a little bit of maturing in age too, right? Maybe when we're younger, and um, maybe we're not quite there, and maybe it takes us a few years to kind of grow into that and kind of have that perspective. But I think uh, you know, we're in a new world where people have access to all of this information,
Yeah.
motivational. Back in the day when there was like, okay, the first Tony Robbins stuff came out with cassettes back in the day, right? And they had that kind of stuff, right? And
Yeah.
who was it? Who's the other guys that prefaced him, right?
Zig Ziglar.
Him and then the other guy, the older
Um,
gentleman. You know what I'm talking about, right?
uh, it's escaping me.
Yeah, me too. But anyways, right? So though that was like not known, right? Those guys used to go speak at like the multi-level marketing and Amway and those kind of companies. They were motivational speakers for those companies back in the day, but it wasn't a public thing, right? You
Yeah.
weren't exposed to that. Nowadays, with social media and YouTube, we're exposed to stuff that I wish I would have known when I was in my teens or
Yeah.
in my early 20s. Figure
Yeah.
out, man, I'd be so much further ahead and kind of would have gotten through all any limitations that I may have had for myself that I set on myself about whatever it is that I was trying to accomplish. I never felt like I couldn't do anything, but maybe subconsciously I kind of limited myself to certain things, right? But I think
Hmm.
the younger people today have such a great advantage of having access to us even talking about this publicly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Anybody can get out there and do what we're doing, and they can absorb it too, right? And like I
Yeah,
was going to say, Tony Robbins, personal development, guy's awesome. Then you got like Bigger Pockets, which is multiple podcasts now, books, and a platform, a network for real estate investing. That wasn't a thing. I wish it had been a thing. Like when I was coming out of college, I'd be in a totally different place right now. But they built that, like the founder built it because there wasn't anything out there. He wanted to learn from everybody else. And so that's an amazing thing for us as investors. And now there's a bunch of other platforms like that, or trying to be like that, or going off in different niches and stuff too, right?
yeah. You don't know what you don't know, but nowadays we have access to more information. And two, going back to the original topic, is don't limit yourself to asking questions because somebody may be doing something or kind of inspires you or gives you an idea of something. Hey, maybe I can implement that into my business. And this happened to me a ton of times,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of go to events and masterminds or Zoom calls or whatever the challenge is, the 5-day challenges, 3-day challenges people kind of talk about, right? And
Cool.
then maybe like, well, it's not necessarily something I'm gonna do, but generally all this business is sales, marketing, product delivery, customer service, operations, right, from beginning to end, right? And there's always a little takeaway. It's like, oh, maybe I can implement it. It's not exactly made for my business, but I can modify it for my business and implement it into my strategy or my business or whatever it may be. There's always something to take away, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've as a matter of fact, I signed up for a 5-day challenge for somebody else that's coaching creative finance. Right? They do a challenge, right? And I could easily say, well, I know everything about creative finance. And I feel pretty comfortable that I know as much as creative finance as anybody else. However, I'm still following along and listening. And it's like, okay, I know that. It's like, but maybe along the way, there's like, oh, they talk about one marketing source that I don't use, that we don't use per se, right? They're talking about the pay-per lead sourcing
Mm-hmm.
to get creative deals direct from seller, right? That's not a method that we use. Um, but I know it exists because say wholesalers use it, not paper lead. There are companies that generate leads for motivated sellers and so forth, and they sell those leads independently, like
Yeah.
as a onesies, twosies, right, or as many as you want to buy, and they're relatively expensive as a lead, but these leads have been kind of somewhat vetted, right? These people are more likely to sell than any random person,
Mm-hmm.
but they're using this lead source to generate potential creative deal sellers. right? That's not something I use, but it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll just keep that in my back pocket because maybe, I don't know, in 6 months, in a year, it's like, oh, maybe I want to implement that. Let me buy 10 leads and see how, right? I know the scripting and I know how to follow the rest, but getting those leads and working those kind of leads, it's not something that I've done before, but I could potentially implement. It's like, let me buy 10 leads, invest in that, and see what comes out of that. And then I could track my numbers. Okay, out of 10 leads, I actually connected with 4 people, and 4 people didn't like that they would be selling like creative because they need all cash. And then, but one of them is potentially open. And then we were able to get one potential seller on a sub 2 or seller finance or any other creative method that we know how to use. And then that deal turns into, I don't know, maybe I spend $1,000 on the lease, but that turns into at least a $10,000 deal over the long haul. So I got to return my investment, but implementing stuff like that, right? So again,
Yeah.
so I try not to limit myself and thinking that I know it all or I have all the answers per se. I feel like I'm very comfortable that I know a lot, but there's somebody that's doing maybe something a little twist different. And there's plenty of people that do rent to own a little bit different than we do, right? Some
Yep.
of it's good, some of it maybe not so good or whatever, but it's different. And there's always takeaways to be had, right? So continually growing, and even if they're doing it differently than I am, I've talked to several people that are doing it differently than the way that we do it. But we connected, talked, like, hey, tell me about your strategy. Oh, the one investor that's in California, right? We did the 3-way call on that, and he's doing he's doing creative finance too in his market, but he's doing it a little bit different than we do. And so, like, oh, we like what you're doing there because that's not something we do. Maybe we can implement it, and vice versa. It's like, oh, I like the way you guys are doing that, right? And
Yeah.
and again, we haven't done any deals with him, right? Because we talked about it. Okay, how do we mesh ourselves? We haven't done any deals with this individual, but that's okay, right? At least we know somebody that's doing something, and then maybe he wasn't ready, or maybe we're not ready. We haven't kind of aligned yet, and it could be down the road at some point in time, right? So,
Yeah.
and
And
I
sometimes
gotta say that I really think with a lot of those, right? We see the synergies a lot of times, but we're not quite there, kind of implementing it collectively, like, and it just has to come together at some point in time, right?
right. And sometimes I need reminders too, like, or I wasn't ready. Like it didn't sink in when I first heard about something. Like when I first started, I knew one way to do rent to own. Then I'd heard about some other things and kind of sometimes I go back. I'm like, oh, why wasn't I doing that, or didn't see something in a certain way? And which goes back to this book too. Like this is the 4th year I've written it. I can't write the same thing every year. It's got to be something different. My strategies change every year. Some are consistent, but some change. But
Right.
every year I'm like, I got something new to say, like for good or bad. Sometimes you got to stay in your lane and not get too distracted. But it's
Yeah, you add a twist to what you're doing, right? I mean,
yeah,
markets change. I mean, even if you're a traditional agent, right?
yeah.
When we were having this boom in 2020, 21, and 22, nobody needed to do open houses. Nobody was doing open houses. Now open houses is the hot thing because that's how you're going to get leads. Because now are you not only trying to sell the property that you have if you have a listing, or even if you take on somebody else's listing and say, hey, can I do an open house at your place if you're not doing it? Because now that's going to bring in walk-in clients that maybe don't have a buyer representing them. And now based on the changes to NAR, that you could be their representing buyer, right? And that's a way to generate potential leads. But 24 months ago, nobody was doing open houses.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't need to be doing open houses because I could just put a property on the MLS and it's sold on the first weekend. I don't even need to do any of that, right? So you're having to adjust and kind of either relearn. And there were some agents that came in during that boom that had never done an open house, and I see it on social media and several other real estate podcasters or real estate agent shows that they talk about. It's like, no, some of these people that are new came in, never had to, don't know how to do an open house. Now they're having to learn a skill set, or their brokers are telling them, hey, you need to start learning how to do open house, or we'll teach you, or whatever it may be, right? And that strategy is currently working the best because obviously we're not in the same market anymore.
Yeah. I just filmed a video a while back about that. Even during this whole thing, open houses were a huge part of it. It's not just for agents to get buyer leads. It's helping sell that house. If you're driving enough traffic to it, there's a tangible thing for buyers seeing other buyers that they're competing against. So I think it's a huge thing. And same with staging. Things were selling, right? Mm-hmm. But if they'd spent a couple grand on staging, they might have got that much more. I mean, there's stats on how much it's staging worth spending that money for staging. A lot of agents are like, I don't need to do that. Like, I think they were hurting their sellers by not doing it. Yes, they were selling for above asking and going quick, but they could have got that much more because the same principles apply. But
speaking of ideas of how to market as an agent, right? I have a free PDF in our Facebook group, the Mr. Rent-to, or the rent-to-own method for real estate agents. I have a free PDF on there on all the methods that you could potentially market for clients and leads. So if you're interested, yeah, you seen it?
I don't think I've seen it.
Okay. All right. Well, it's one of the documents in the group, and if you're an agent out there and would like to get a free copy of that, join our group. You can text me or reach out to me or James, and we kind of send you the link to the group. And we talk about marketing all the time, and then specifically as it relates to rent to own. But all the ideas in there are not just for rent to own. It's just generating leads for potential clients that either want to sell or want to buy. And then what you do with that potential lead, it could be multiple things. It could be a traditional, it could be creative, that maybe rent to own, or maybe they just need to rent for a while, or whatever that may be, right? So but the key with this is free methods, and then there are some paid methods as well, but we talk about all of them in there. But right now, obviously, if you're not generating a whole lot of business, then you got to think of creative ways that are free or as least expensive as possible.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I have to share that link.
Yeah. And obviously one of our methods in that is rent to own for clients that don't qualify for traditional financing, but hey, you can still get paid as an agent when you bring somebody to us. So any final thoughts? I know we're running on 40 plus minutes here. Any final thoughts on the topic? That mindset, networking, building relationships, and this is important, right? People don't think about it or set to the side, and it tends to come up every once in a while. But I think for me, it's important. I always need a refresher too with it, right? Yeah, I'm in a mindset too, but sometimes I need to hear it differently, or I need to hear from somebody else a different perspective, whether it's a podcast or a collaboration like this or at an event, or a motivational speaker, or some of the old ones that I've listened to in the past. Sometimes I just re-listen to some of those too, because like kind of fuels you and kind of gets you kind of in that mindset. Like, oh yeah, I gotta get it going. If I'm feeling a little slow, or I'm not moving fast enough, or I gotta get going, I gotta get re-energized. We all need it, right? I mean, we're not machines. Right? We're not machines, right? So we all sort of need that reset, or kind of that little jump start, or that little kick, or it's like feeling refreshed and like, oh man, it's like this is good. I needed that, right? I needed that either pat in the back, or like motivational, or like that great quote, right? It's like, oh man, that gives you perspective, right? Because it's a constant, right? And that's the mindset of the entrepreneur, right? It's not like clocking in and clocking out, going to a job and getting up in the morning, brushing your teeth, getting ready, and like, okay, you're still going to get paid regardless, right? As long as you show up. Well, being an entrepreneur ain't like that, right? You gotta set some discipline. And sometimes maybe you're not feeling as disciplined or feeling as motivated. You got to figure out, okay, how the heck am I going to get myself going this morning? Whether it's oh, I don't know, 2 cups of coffee versus one, or if you don't drink coffee, well, maybe today I need it, or whatever it is. So no, I try to take the approach the morning time. I got to get my mindset right. So that's what I try to do is listen to something that's going to get me motivated or inspire me or give me creative ideas. Maybe somebody's doing something. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. They're killing it, or they're doing really good with this because they came up with something that I haven't thought of, hadn't heard before, or oh, maybe something I can implement in my business. And it starts generating the ideas. It's like, oh, let me go do that, or let me write that down, and because I need to add it to my weekly to-dos when I do my brain dump on Sundays. Like, okay, I heard this and maybe I want to get to this, and you're going to write out maybe, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50. You're not going to get to all of them, right? But at least you put them down on paper, because if you don't, you're going to forget them, and at least knock them out. Knock out, okay, I want to knock out 5 to 10 this. I have a list of 50. I'm not going to get to 50, but I'm going to knock out 5 to 10 this week. And then next week I'll reassess and kind of prioritize them, and what's going to get me forward, what's going to move me forward in my business. What's closest to the finish line is really what you should be going after, right? Because that's usually going to get you paid, right? Because everybody's got sort of bills to pay. So what's close to the finish line, work on those first, and then kind of start knocking down. And then anything you committed to, if you already say, hey, yes, I'm going to attend. Yes, I'm going to be on this call. Yes, I made this appointment. Yes. Okay. Those are non-negotiables, I like to call them, right? Because you already committed to somebody. Keeping your word is huge, right? Or if you need to, I guess, I mean, do everything possible to make it, or be proactive and getting ahead and say, hey, you know what? I know today's Friday and we're supposed to meet next Thursday, but I know I'm not going to be able to make it. Can we reschedule that, right? And being, having courtesy for others too in their time.
Yeah. I had one thing that kind of came up for me. An example, that deal that we had put together, there's like 13 different people involved. The investor on that deal is also an agent and a fix and flipper. He and his wife are both licensed agents. So we got him that investment. The buyers ended up buying. And then not too long after that, he gave me a call and he's like, hey, I've got a friend that is going to have to do rent to own. Can you help? And so I was like, well, part of our process is looking at the lending side. So I sent them back to their preferred lender, and the lender dove into it and it's like, oh, we can do a loan. We don't have to do rent to own. We could have done rent to own, but they didn't have to. But my point about it is, like, reach out to us. We might have some solutions, that you might not have thought about. If you think you hit a wall or something, let's brainstorm this stuff. And we know more than just rent to own, right? So let's figure it out.
Yeah, and that's part of collaborating, right? So say it could be a flipper, investor, agent, lender, and they're sort of stuck. I can't get this thing moved, right? Who can we go to without them feeling like, oh, if I go to James and Don, they're gonna steal my client, they're gonna steal my deal, they're gonna whatever, right? It's like, no, right? I mean, it's short-sighted,
Right.
to think that way. It's like, hey, here's here's some ideas for you. You can use them or not use them. That's okay. It doesn't really impact us, but at least we open up the conversation. Maybe give you a different perspective on things, and then along the way, you always have a, hey, well, maybe we'll buy it, right? Or maybe we'll market it, or no, or let us help you market it also. So you continue doing what you're doing, and then, now that we know what's going on and what your transaction looks like, and what needs to happen, or what does the seller need, or if you're the seller, what do you need to get out of this, or what's going to help you, then let us market it ourselves to our network also, right? And maybe somebody comes along and says, yeah, I need that because I was looking exactly for that, right? In that location, or that type of property, or in that situation, whatever it may be, right? So it's important to always have build your Rolodex, as we would say, right? It doesn't uh, it doesn't stop growing. You continue
Yeah.
adding people on your phone list and people that you can reach out and what do they do, and how can we work together, or how can I help them and how can they help me, and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been doing that since I started going to RIA events. Like I didn't know anybody or anything, but I just kept taking business cards and creating that network. Now it's people come to me. They're like, "Hey, do you know somebody that does Spanish tile or whatever?" Oh, I might have somebody or know somebody that knows somebody, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
As the saying is, your network is your net worth,
Yep.
right? Right. And or what is it, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever that thing is, right? Right. It's like we're dating ourselves here, right? Isn't that from Footloose, or where did that come from?
Oh.
All right. Anyway, 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon, right? So somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, right?
Yep.
Hopefully it's for a good and not for spreading spreading conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
But anyways, any final thoughts so we can close house shop for the day?
I'm done.
Cool.
Not giving
Well, if
any
people
more value.
want to get a hold of you, talk to you, run some scenarios by you, collaborate with you, pick your brain on stuff, ask you if you know somebody that knows somebody, how do they do that?
If watching the video, go to Linktree/partner with James Brown.
It's not D. James Brown, or is it just James Brown?
It's
just James
I
Brown?
am
Come on, it's got to be D. James Brown.
I am the James Brown.
The other James Brown is dead, so
Yeah.
you're D. James Brown now.
Yeah.
All right, well, if you want to get a hold of me, I am Mr. Rent to Own Homes on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And our website is for rent to own inquiries is rent2ownhomesus.com. You can watch the explainer video halfway through that page. Explains to you how our rent to own home program works, and you can register on there, and we can schedule a conversation about your situation, or if you're an agent or a lender and you have a client potentially. You can also find my contact info, phone number, email in my bio. My link tree's on there as well. So that is it for today. So until next week, see you.